But at the end of the day, it still comes back to human beings. We are serving the needs of actual human beings and people and families, making them better, making them healthier, making them safer, creating a platform for generational health and change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why this is so important. That's why I'm so passionate about it.
Yeah.
Because it's not just about a business. This is literally helping humanity reach higher levels of potential and actualization through solving big problems together.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the HR Leaders Podcast. On today's episode, I'm joined by Derek Lundsten, who's a president and chief culture officer at Lifeguides and host of the Rebels with a Heart podcast. During the episode, Derek shares how Lifeguides are helping people and families to live with greater purpose, vitality, and joy. He also talks about why a thriving workforce equals a thriving business and why employees are demanding a healthier, more caring, and more compassionate culture. As always, before we jump into the video, make sure you hit the subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and follow on your favorite podcast platform. With that being said, let's jump in. Derek, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
Thanks, Chris. I'm great. It's good to be with you.
Nice to see you again. Last time I saw you didn't have a beard. Now you've got a beard. Tell us more about that.
I like to keep you on your toes.
Yeah. I'm like, is that really him? Oh yeah, it is him. It is him. Anyway, how's business? How's the family?
Everything is going fantastic. So family is amazing. I've got 3 little ones. It's Christmas season here in Arizona. Our neighborhood is really into it. Everybody's got their lights out.
Really?
Kids are loving it. We've got our tree set up. And I have a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. And so They are in the full magic right now of the holiday season. So,
but that's a lot of presents though.
It is a lot. Yeah, but it's and we're gonna have some family coming in after the holiday over the New Year. So it's gonna be a fun few weeks coming up here for them.
Nice.
And yeah, business is rocking because of everything that's happened over the last couple of years. It's really set up Lifeguides really well with what we're doing and how we're serving, and eager to talk with you about that. And it's been quite a journey over the last few years.
Good to hear, man.
To say the least.
Yeah, good to hear. Good to hear you're doing well. Let's start from the beginning and tell everyone a little bit more about you personally and the journey of where we are today, and then we'll get into obviously Lifeguides a little bit more about what you're doing there.
Yeah, absolutely. So background, I have now been on this entrepreneurship journey for more than a decade, and I had built another business previously where you and I first met called Scrimmage, which was an ed tech platform focusing. We were one of the first companies actually doing gamified learning, micro learning, personalized learning using phones and tablets back when the iPad first came to market. And that was a cutting edge idea. And so we did a lot of work serving the healthcare industry, especially, and really changing the way that people learn and the platforms by which they learn, and really making it more consumer or user driven as opposed to compliance and company driven. And that was the real shift. And so I built that company. I sold that company in 2020. And I've been involved in other ventures throughout the years that I've either co-founded or invested in and partnered with, primarily always in the health, technology, education, wellness intersection. That's just areas that I particularly find interesting, how to help people be the best version of themselves in their life, in their career, in their family, in their community. That's something that personally is of importance to me. That's actually why I first invested in Lifeguides now 5.5 years ago, as one of the early investors before I joined as an operating executive right before the pandemic of all times, right? And so it was a really wild time. But yeah, from a core essence, I've always been on a mission of purpose, right? From a young age, literally from about 7 years old, I was asking myself, why am I here? Why are we here? And my life in many ways has been a process of unfolding that for people and also for myself, and looking for deeper meaning and helping to create meaning in people's lives, right? And so I always say I'm a philosopher first, a businessman second, and now I'm a father first and a teacher second. And business is hopefully is and ideally just a means to an end to make a better world for all of our children, right? That's something that drives me now. So Lifeguides is hopefully a huge contributor to that work and to that mission, and something that will make a mark and be something that can be a platform by which we can do more good work in the world, and something you and I have talked a bit about, Chris, and I always enjoy our chat. So yeah, happy to go wherever you want to go with this.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's so interesting. You said you found that you even asked the question of your why from an early age, because I didn't probably have answered. I had asked myself that question until maybe like late 20s.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and just waking up one day and being like, actually, it wasn't even waking up. It was watching the Simon Sinek. I mean, so start with why.
Why? Yeah.
Start with why thing. And I was like, why do I do this? And then I couldn't stop thinking about it, because for the longest time, it had always been around the money, the job title, the promotion. And I was like, this isn't really why. I'm not happy. Why am I not happy? And then I realized why. But you had that early on, which is pretty amazing, to be honest, to find out early on.
And not to say that, and that part of the journey of life, guys, not to say that I didn't have questions or make mistakes or do things along the way that also affected my happiness or unhappiness, to your point. But that was always a core essence for me. You know, it was always a curiosity. There was always a sense of, you know, of that, and unpacking that. And not that I have the answer or a question solved. That's part of the experience. I forget who I was talking with the other day. Oh, one of our advisors, and we were talking about majoring in philosophy and how I walked away with more questions than answers, right?
Yeah.
So even when you literally pursue the answers, oftentimes that just creates more questions, and it actually just changes the entire continuum of what you're doing.
Yeah,
right?
that's the exciting part, though, isn't it? The journey and the discovery along the way. So tell everyone, what is Lifeguides? You know, talk about, and what is its why and purpose?
Yeah, I'll share what it is, and I'll share how it's come to be. So Lifeguides is a technology platform for sharing life experience, wisdom, and empathy, right? So the guide, in essence, is the guide's model, is the core component of it. And I'll bring it back to human history, and even what we were just talking about, connection. You know, back 1,000 years ago, when we lived in villages or tribes, you had elders, and you would seek out counsel from those who had seen more or learned more, right? The core essence of human beings is we learn from stories, we learn from experiences, both ourselves or from others. And the idea is that when we experience a challenge or an event or an opportunity for growth in our lives, someone else has already lived that themselves. They've forged their own character, they've learned certain lessons, they've experienced hardships, they've navigated this effectively. And so they can share that. And they can share that wisdom, they can share the empathy, most importantly, in a judgment-free, dogma-free, stigma-free fashion, so that people can feel safe, they can feel supported, and they can get to those answers more effectively. And so we've built a technology platform that allows people to find their quote-unquote guide or guides in all of life's opportunities, challenges, and lessons. And so think of becoming a new parent, like we were just talking about, or relocating for a promotion across the country for a job, or finding out a loved one has a chronic illness and you're now their caregiver, or going through a relationship transition. You can go onto our technology, much as you would Airbnb or Match.com, and you can choose from a list of actual human beings who have volunteered and they were compensated, but to be clear, they're choosing to go on to be of service and offer their talents, their skills, their stories, their points of view in help and support of other people, right? It's mentorship and life guidance at scale, right? And the mission, literally, the mission is to help 1 billion people around the world, back to the spiritual piece, reduce unnecessary suffering in their lives, help them find an alternative path, help them to move through these moments more healthily, more productively, to help families have better health and vitality. And a more purpose and a more positive lens is to help people and families and systems live in greater purpose, vitality, and joy. That's really what we're doing. And the way that we do that is through reconnecting people, connecting people at a core human need level through emotional connection, spiritual connection, and purposeful connection to help people work and solve challenges and help them move through life more effectively and know that they have something in their corner. So that's what Lifeguides is.
Love it.
We sell that to companies.
Love it. So, it's in the name.
Yeah, exactly.
There's so many questions I have off the back of that. Like, whenever I look back at the moments in my career and the journey that I've got to today, and people ask me, like, how did you get there, etc. There's so many people that helped me along the way. You know, one is someone we both know, Chester Elton, who's my coach. Yeah, and without his wisdom and experience, would I have got there? Maybe, but I got there a lot quicker and with a lot less suffering along the way, right? And similar with some of my investments, I've kind of seeked out experts in those particular areas, whether it's real estate and you know, had a guide, someone who's they've paid to guide me through the process. And then similar within sports, you know, that I've played, where I've had coaches and guides to help me as an athlete. As well, right? And a lot of times people think that this is only reserved for the top executives or the top, or you have to be rich to do that. But everyone deserves that and can access that.
And that's exactly what we're doing.
Exactly.
And that's exactly the problem that we're solving. Everyone deserves that. Now, so let me go back for a second to tell the story, because that's important to the founding of this business. So I met my business partner, Mark, as well as the founder of Match.com, Will Bunker, in the Abundance 360, what is now part of the Singularity University Network, about 7 years ago. And Mark and Will both had an experience that they became caregivers of their parents with Alzheimer's dementia. Mm-hmm. I had seen that kind of secondhand with my dad and stepmom, where they were caregivers for my grandparents in similar fashion. And there was an awareness that they and this community had a level of resourcefulness, education, access that many people don't have, and it was still hard for them, right? And so what I saw was that if you could do that, if you could give a guide to quote unquote everyone, what kind of improvements could you make in the lives of those people and those families and those communities, in those organizations, and then take it beyond just Alzheimer's caregiving. What I saw as an early investor was that this was any life experience, any challenge. It was not limited to caregiving, although that's a big one and will continue to grow because of our aging population. It was anything. It was relationships. It was career. It was children. It was families. It was your purpose, your health, right? Yeah. Any and all of those. And there's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of unique life experiences or challenges or opportunities where you would benefit, to your point, from having someone who's walked the path ahead of you, mm-hmm. so they can give you objective and vested interest in helping you do it well.
Yeah.
Right.
But what you just said is really close to home. Shane, my co-founder, is currently being a caregiver along with his mum and his family to his granddad right now, who's got Alzheimer's, like you just said, and dementia. Yeah. He's got dementia. And, he's there. He's taken significant time out of HR leaders. He's actually was just there just now. Like, he's been there for the last couple of days, taking care over the weekend. And I've seen the stress that is put on his mum, himself, both emotionally and financially. Talking about £5,000 a month to have caregivers come in and help out and visit, and also just the emotional, journey of seeing someone that you love and I love. I grew up with Shane running around his granddad's house, and mm-hmm. And going over there and seeing that he's forgot who I am is like, and I'm not even direct family. It's like really emotional to be like, wow, like he doesn't even know who I am anymore, as well. So yeah, like that point is really close to, like, I've been seeing that last couple of 12 months.
Thanks for sharing that, Chris. And best to Shane and family.
Sure. It's tough.
But that's exactly. I mean, you just gave voice, and this affects so many people around the world, right? And different challenges affect so many people around the world, right? And so that's what this is all about: is connecting those people, connecting communities of care.
How does this then? We know the answer to this, but I'm sure people listening may not. But how does this then? Why is this so important in the workplace then? Yeah,
so that's a really powerful question, an important question, right? So we launched this business. I was an investor 5.5 years ago. So this was well in advance of COVID and the pandemic and all the things that have happened over the last couple of years. And so we experimented with a business to business or a direct to consumer go to market, because keep in mind, mental health up until a couple of years ago was still very taboo in the workplace, mm-hmm. especially, but in work broadly. I know you've talked about this, right, in your own life. And the idea of going to see a therapist or using an EAP was very much kind of, you don't do that, right? And so we said, our idea was, what if we had peer counselors, peer mentors, people who were safe because they're literally mirrors of each other, right? We said who could be there as guides, and then offered that to businesses. Would that change the lens and perception of people's willingness to seek care and to reach out for coaching and mentorship and get resources, because it's talking to another human being? And we have this tagline now, Chris: more casual than therapy, more qualified than a friend, right? It really helps people understand what this is in the business context. But coming back to the question, why B2B? What we found was, trying to do that to a consumer marketplace at the time, we would have burned through all of our capital. We would have tried to still struggle with getting people to use the service, and we would have been 10 years from making this a reality, or our billion people goal. What we found was, if we could get companies, who we know are the leverage point, the fulcrum point to make big change happen quickly, if we could destigmatize access to care through organizations and have them subsidized for this, you would create healthier, thriving, more fulfilled employees, families, and systems. We would prove that the model made sense. People would be reaching out and having a more optimized care design for their mental, emotional, and spiritual well-being. And there would be proven out to be a market that we were doing. And so we launched commercially. We spent the first few years building out the technology, validating this peer model, building out the recruiting and the compensation and quality designs, the legal considerations. And we launched, and we started serving corporate customers in the fall of 2019. I stepped into the CEO role in January 2020, moved across the country to start this big commercialization. March 2020, pandemic happens, right? All of a sudden, the whole world shuts down. Everyone in the world is experiencing the same moment the question that we were talking about at the very beginning. Why am I here? What does my life mean? Is it going to end? What's happening to my business, my career, my family, my coworkers, my company? Is it going to exist tomorrow? We're all wondering. And it brought the light bulb moment to collective society. Like, what are we doing here? How do we do this differently? Anything is possible. The rules have been rewritten, literally. That's why we launched the Rebels of the Heart series. Is how do we rewrite what's possible in the world of business and people in this kind of context of cultures of caring, that business as a platform for sharing care is part of the responsibility beyond just making money. Mm-hmm. And providing for families and communities is part of the opportunity and responsibility beyond that, right? Yeah. And so that's what we did. And so that's why serving in the organizational model is so important, because we know, and data supports this now, that if you invest in your people's well-being, you invest in their development, you invest in their families, you're going to have healthier, happier, more productive people, which in turn will create happier, healthier companies, more growth, more profits, better culture, better morale. Those things are all known. We're now quantifying the role of healthcare savings, mental health optimization, people getting care they would not otherwise have. These are all things that are happening, and we can quantify in a business lens. But at the end of the day, it still comes back to human beings. We are serving the needs of actual human beings and people and families, making them better, making them healthier, making them safer, creating a platform for generational health and change. Mm-hmm. And that's why this is so important. That's why I'm so passionate about it. Yeah. Because it's not just about a business. This is literally helping humanity reach higher levels of potential and actualization through solving big problems together.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I'm sure everyone listening could hear your energy and passion. And like you said, it's not only the right thing to do, it is good business yes. to do too, as well. And I love that you mentioned, obviously, families, because I think companies also shifted that lens to not just taking care of our employees, but taking care of their family. Because you could take care of your employee, but if they're having challenges at home with their, wife, loved ones, kids, etc., then that's going to impact them too, right?
Exactly right, Chris.
Having a platform where you can subsidize that for them and their family, whether it's this or any other platform in this space, is super important. So just to be clear, that is the model. You subsidize, the companies subsidize the service.
The companies pay for it, literally.
They pay for it.
Other payers pay for it. There's no cost to families.
So it's not subsidized, it's fully covered in most cases.
Fully covered by companies for their people. It's a huge it's a huge benefit to have this level of access.
I was about to say, wow. Okay.
It's free to their family. It's free to the employee, their spouse, their partner, the adults in their home. We only support adults at this time, but adults in their home have access, unlimited access to our network of guides and to the ecosystem of business partnerships that we're building around that network of care.
And I know in the US it's a bit more complicated than the UK, where a lot of the services go through the insurers. Right? Could you explain that to our listeners?
So technically at this time, we are not going through health insurance, but we are being bundled in to different health and wealth and insurance products that companies offer. Yeah. And that's one pathway that we are getting market access and clients.
But you also do directly
to the leadership of the organization, who are offering this both strategically because it addresses some of the things we've just talked about, as well as a perk to retain or attract other employees that they want to come, because it's a huge value. I mean, I literally had a client the other day tell me they would spend $1 million for this service, like full stop. They said, I would pay you $1 million because that's how valuable talking to a guide in that situation that Shane experienced is to that person, right? So this is literally almost immeasurable in terms of the value that someone would have when it affects their family directly. And I think when you look at That's the whole point, right? It's that MasterCard commercial. It's priceless. It's literally priceless that someone would pay almost any amount of money to have that care when they need it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. Like, yeah, it's same exactly with Shane's granddad, for example. Even as soon as we saw the cost, it was like, yeah, it's a lot of money, but it's we're doing it.
Yeah.
Because the quality of life, the relationship, the experience, you're not going to compromise on that for someone that you love and care about, right?
Exactly.
As well. So how does it work? How do you find? I'm sure, like, one of the things that when I first started speaking to you and learning about this is, how do you qualify these people, the guides? Like, because you've got all of these different areas and sub expertise in order, like, how do you do that?
It's a really fun question. I'm going to dig into it. Let me just say one thing too. It's one of the things I'm most optimistic about for human society is this particular fact. So in all of our life experiences, life topics, life challenges, we have always exceeded by about tenfold the amount of people who want to become guides than we've modeled out for an introduction. So basically what that says is there's a massive supply of people who want to help other people. It's in our DNA.
I thought that would be the hardest part, if I'm being honest.
Well, that's what you would think, right? And that's what we expected, but it's the opposite. It's people want to help other people. And that is something that is, I think, under-shouted right now, that there's a core essence that people want to help other people, and that we need to be leaning into that as opposed to this message of polarity and division that keeps getting shouted. Because the reality is we're all human beings, we're all experiencing life together. And that's something that actually is a huge unifying force. It's positive.
So it's also like a DEI lens as well to this.
Absolute massive belonging lens, because we're all part of this story of life, right? We're all part of this experience, the challenges, the growth, right? And then to your comment, how do we qualify them? So this is where the whole job of the future or opportunity of the future thesis comes into play, which is really exciting too, is that we talk about universal basic income. Why would you not get a living wage for being a good human being? For living life well, for living experiences? We are compensating people both educationally, community, financially, purpose, belonging. There's about 12 ways that guides are compensated. But we, to your point, invest in helping them to share their story, to build a quality framework, to give them skills to be quote unquote guides, to be better communicators, more effective listeners, empathetic leaders, to help them cultivate their resilience, to help them translate their stories into service. Those are things that we do as part of our educational curriculum, both assigned and elective, right? That people are valuing to become a guide. So we're building an entire educational model around this. We're building an entire compensation model around this. We're building an entire quality model around this, right? So to your point, we are vetting their backgrounds, their skills, and then where the technology comes into place, we're attributing all their experiences, their education, their credentials, their stories, their backgrounds, their demographics, all of that. And that goes into the data set where we start matching people, right? So think about Airbnb again. When you go on there and say, I want to go stay at the beach in a 3-bedroom, 2-bath with a pool.
And hear about criteria, yeah.
Exactly. I want to talk to a guide who's from England, who relocated to the US, who has a young family, and I want to talk to them about their friend who had a caregiving issue. You could theoretically put that in, and you would have a series of guides who have had a very similar life path to you, or very different for that matter, and you could schedule a confidential video, phone, or message interaction with that guide and have a session on a recurring basis. Again, more casual than therapy, more qualified than a friend, where you build a real relationship where they're quote unquote guiding or coaching you on that particular life experience or issue in your life. And then the coolest part is, let's just say you resolve that. You then want to become a guide yourself. You can come onto our platform and you can pay it forward and serve other people in that topic or other topics, right? So we're building an entirely economic category around this.
You see your own marketplace that you're building in there. So how does it work? Like, obviously you can select the different areas. Is there also an element of like sentiment analysis and stuff like that, or is it not as detailed?
That's all the stuff that we're building as part of the data set. So we have this, our IP is called intelligence assistance, right? The idea is it's the inverse of artificial intelligence. It's optimizing human capabilities. So we as human beings are uniquely emotional, have emotional intelligence, adaptability quotient, those types of aspects. Those are not things that we believe that data can do well, but that's where we bring our human element. So how do we help human beings deliver that more effectively. We give them the resources, the tools, the prompts, the details that would make them more effective in those conversations. That's what we're doing.
I was wondering why you're saying that. Like, where do companies, when you speak to them, position you? Because you're not really like, you don't fit into a binary box, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's been the biggest, and it was one of the most exciting parts over the last few years. We've had to educate the market, right? This is a totally new concept, new category, and it feels a little bit like a benefit. It feels a little bit like leadership development. It feels a little bit coaching. It feels a little bit like mental health, but like, where do we put you? And so we just tell clients, put us wherever you want to put us. Just get us in the door with your people, and the experience will speak for itself, which it continually does. Right. And that's the most exciting part about this business. If you want to put us in total rewards, you want to put us in DE&I, you want to put us in L&D, you want to be a strategic initiative from your CEO or board around these opportunities for remote work and mental health and emotional well-being, any and all of them are fine. Right. Wherever you want to get started. But ultimately, it's just make sure that you're giving it to your people. We don't care.
What do companies currently have in place, or is what's the equivalent of, or do companies have stuff like this in place? Like the percentage of companies you're speaking to, how many of them actually have something like this in place?
So companies that are doing something like Lifeguides, very minimal, because it's that peer-to-peer data-driven support.
However, how are they dealing with these challenges then? If they're not doing it through your platform, that's what I meant. That's what I meant.
There's a whole ecosystem of partners that have attempted or are doing part of this in certain aspects well. So employee assistance programs, 30 years ago, probably started out well-intended, right? But they were a capitation, they had to get a business model. They were a capitation-based design, right? Their entire utilization rate in their market before the pandemic was 5%, right? But you're paying for 100% of the utilization of the population to use it. So 95% is being utilized. Now with the pandemic, all of a sudden the need and demand skyrocket. And it's been shown to not meet the needs. And plus we had all the stigma problems we talked about before. However, there's still a role for EAP because there are crises. There are people that need that acute care when they need it. And let's provide that for them. Same thing with mental health. Some people really benefit from talking to a clinically trained counselor. They benefit from getting therapeutic interventions. There's a need for diagnosable illness at times, and that's a percentage of the population too. Or that helps them move through a trauma or a situation or whatever it is that they can then get to receive care in a more holistic manner. We move people through that chain. What a guide does, to your point, is it helps people to move through this system into the high performance coaching side. So we talked about Coaching 100 and different platforms. We can build a model for serving the high potentials and the leadership of the organization. But providing that day-to-day, quote-unquote, life guidance through a personalized lens, through a human being, but then optimized for data, that's unique, right? And we hear that consistently from all the top brokers and organizations.
Do you have the companies, do you train life guides in companies when you work with them? Say if you're working with a large enterprise and they say, look, we want X percentage of our managers or leaders to be life guides. How does that work?
So that question has started to come up. We have started to do that with it's not, I wouldn't say it's a structured design, because the way we look at the guides, it's the entirety of
I get it. Yeah, I get it.
So, but yes, we tell clients all that. We had this client last week that asked that exact question. Said, yes, if you would like that your people to become guides, bring them in, and we can bring them through our curriculum, and we can also, from a technological standpoint, either make it so they are available in that employer or not, right? So because
that's what I think. I think it'd be nice to have both, because if you can speak to someone in your organization who's been through that crisis or journey and experience, it's just a bit easier. And you can relate to them a bit more. So that'd be really cool. Like I had one of the vice presidents of HR at DHL, Lindsay. If you're listening, I'm glad to hear that you're doing well. She had cancer. And she mentioned the different employees and leaders that reached out to her that had also gone through it. And then she said it was really great to have that community of people that have been there, right? And that can support you and guide you through what you're going through. And I remember her mentioning that as well. So, yeah, that'd be really, really cool. It's so interesting. Like, as you said, couldn't have been better timing for the organization given the last couple of years. And organizations are finally opening their eyes to realize that we really have to think about the employee more holistically.
Holistically and personally.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly as well. So I'm really happy with what you're doing, man. I think it's incredible. And not only that, it's not, again, like we said earlier, it's not just the right thing to do. It makes business sense. So everyone listening, there is a real ROI
Yes.
to that in terms of retention, to customer satisfaction, to just going to work and enjoying what you do every day as well. What are you most excited about moving forward?
Well, we are having breakthrough growth right now. So, I mean, the fact that we're getting closer to filling this mission is one of the things I'm most excited about. I mean, ultimately, the opportunity to help people and to hear the stories of the guides affecting people's lives, that brings me truly great fulfillment, right? And motivation to keep pursuing and pushing. The fact that, to your comment, the market is opening up their minds, their hearts, their willingness to roll this out and adapt it in a widespread fashion. We've put 5.5 years into building this business, and it's exciting to see it taking off in the culture, the collective culture, right, of what's needed right now. And so, this is a big vision. I mean, this is a multi-decade type of project, right? And so that's the fact that it's resonating and it's serving well and it's working and that companies are waking up to it and we're seeing the results. I'm thrilled about it. Right?
Yeah.
And from a business standpoint, we're going to be expanding our community. We're expanding our team. We're going to be serving more clients. We're going to be going global, right? I mean, that's all part of the work that we're doing in the coming years, right? And so the impact that we're starting to really see is getting more and more real.
Yeah. I don't normally ask this question, and people know this listening, because I don't really like ever trying to make something a sales pitch. But I'm interested in this perspective because people listening are probably asking themselves, like, what is the model? Like, the costs, how does it work? Because I'm personally interested in what it looks like.
Yeah. So from the perspective of how we price this, so to our earlier point, we've gone to market to help but to insert into a market where we know there's a buying decision, right? And so for the price of a latte a month, you can provide unlimited access to your employees through this platform. Right?
Per employee, obviously.
Yes.
Yeah. And when you work with companies, do they normally like onboard a test pool, if that makes sense, like a pilot? How does it normally work?
I'd say so. Some companies do, depending on the size, they'll roll out the entirety, and others will roll out, for example, a Fortune 100 that has 200,000 employees. They might start with 5 to 20,000 of those employees as a starting.
Yeah, or even globally start within a particular region. And
that's a perfect example.
And then go out. Interesting, man. Cool. Well, listen, before I let you go, like, what would be your parting advice to all of our listeners? Apart from them checking out what you do, what advice would you give to them?
Well, I think that goes back to what I said earlier. Like, there's the fact that we're doing this, everyone winning, everyone having a healthier purpose, healthier life, healthier family. That's really what we're here to do. The more people solving this problem, in our mind, the better, right? This is we're a public benefit corp. Literally, we're a B Corp. So the idea of people getting care that they need is all that really matters here, right? That's really what we're doing. Building a sustainable business around it. That just is the way that we know that change happens fast. That's the world that we now live in, right? And so on a personal level is just be willing to ask those questions about why do you do what you do? Why do you think the way that you think? Why do we feel the way that you feel? Be open to alternative views and be curious to learning more about yourself and others, and be willing to reach out and ask for support and also to give that support to other people, because that is the reality. We are all here together experiencing this journey of life, and it is uncertain and it is winding and it is both joyous and challenging and there's defeats and triumphs, and we all have that. That is the nature of what we are doing here, right? In this current design. And so being humble as well as being of service in that design is what I would leave people with. And when you do that, it's amazing what problems we can solve together and the difference we can make in people's lives.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. And then lastly, where can people connect with you if they want to reach out to you directly?
Yeah, lifeguides.com. Rebels with a Heart is my podcast that I host. And we have amazing leaders that come on. So rebelswithaheart.com. You can check it out on all the podcast channels as well. And then you can also connect with me on any social media under Derek Lundsten.
Yeah, I suggest definitely connecting with you on LinkedIn, because I know you post some great content there, and a lot of our listeners are on LinkedIn. So, and for everyone listening, all of those links that are below to the website, to Derek's LinkedIn, to his podcast, all of those, wherever you're listening or watching right now, all those links will be below. But man, I appreciate you coming on the show. I'm so happy for you and the team, and from where you were when we spoke to where we are now. It's amazing. And literally what you're doing is changing lives as well. So keep up the amazing work, man.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate the opportunity to share with your listeners, and always good to connect with you.
Cool,
Wish
man.
you much success in 2023.